Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Build Your Sales Machine, Creating a Sales Outreach Campaign webinar. My name is Teresa, and I will be your tech support and organizer for the webinar. Our presenter today is John Finnegan, a consultant with our organization, the Florida SBDC at UCF. And before I continue his introduction, I want to go over some housekeeping for this event and tell you a little bit about the Florida SBDC at UCF. During this webinar, your mics are muted by default. If you have any questions, feel free to use the questions chat box feature in the GoToWebinar panel at any time, and we will address them as we go through the presentation. We ask that you make your questions as specific as possible so we can answer it accordingly. Please do not use the raise the hand feature. We can only take questions and comments through the question box. Copies of today's handout that John will discuss can be found under the Handouts tab in the GoToWebinar panel. Evaluations for this webinar will be emailed to you shortly after the session. Your feedback is very important to us, so please check your inbox at the conclusion and submit your feedback as soon as possible. Our organization, the SBDC, or the Small Business Development Center at UCF, is an economic development organization that exists to help small businesses grow and succeed. We serve an 8-county region. We are state designated as Florida's principal provider of business assistance and are partially funded by the US SBA, the state of Florida, and other local organizations and community partners. The SBDC has been around for 45 years, and we have offices throughout Florida, ranging from our headquarters in Pensacola all the way down to the Keys, with each region being hosted by a university or state college. In Central Florida, we are hosted by UCF. Our service offerings include no-cost one-on-one consulting in all different areas of business, and normally in-person but now virtual seminars on various business topics and strategies. Your presenter today, John Finnegan, has been a business consultant with the SBDC at UCF for the past 2 years, starting as a volunteer advisor and moving into a full-time role in 2020. He's part of the consulting team working with small businesses throughout our Central Florida area. Prior to his SBDC role, John worked for 30 plus years in the business world, typically in senior business development roles. He's worked in a large multi-billion-dollar Fortune 200 corporation and medium-sized 500 to 700 million businesses. He founded and managed 2 small businesses in Central Florida and has contributed to development and general management guidance to a number of others. His formal education includes a BBA and an MBA from the University of Wisconsin. Go Badgers and Knights. Go UCF. I'd like to thank you all again for us. And without further ado, I'll pass it on to John.
Thank you so much, Teresa. We appreciate you joining us for an hour or so to talk about creating a sales outreach campaign. One thing I want to do before I get going is give the SBDC a little love. When I was a volunteer consultant on a couple of different board of advisors, I had very much respect for the SBDC, for the program, and for the people. And in the last year or so, since joining as a full-time consultant through September of this year, my level of respect for the SBDC and for the consultants in the program has gone up substantially. And it's not only their expertise, it's also their commitment to the client. Because you think about it, when small business owners come to the SBDC with challenges, so maybe they have cash flow issues, or maybe they have financial management, or they have staffing issues, they need help. And there's a high sense of urgency from the folks like me, the consultants, and I have huge respect for that. So now we're going to talk about creating a sales outreach campaign for about an hour. And here, I want to set some expectations. This is an hour. You know, this is, we're not going to change your world. You know, so the building a sales outreach campaign, it's not highly complicated. There's no quantum physics involved, that kind of thing. It's not highly complicated, but it's not simple. You know, if you're committed to building a sales outreach campaign in your business, it's going to take some work. It takes planning. You got to build some content. You know, you got to do some training, and then you got to execute. You know, so it's not highly complicated, but it's not necessarily simple. And then there's a couple of different things in terms of the people watching today. Some of you are just giving this thought. So maybe you run a business and you're going, we need to get some additional revenue here where we've plateaued, and you're right at the beginning of the process. Good. This thing will be at least a good basis for you to get started. Some of you, and I know some of you on the call have more experience, and I get that. So some of our discussion is going to be at a pretty basic level. But here's the thing: in the course of an hour, if you get 2 or 3 ideas, that we talk about, and you go, I like that. That's a good idea, and you write it down and you say, I'm going to do that. You get 2 or 3 ideas in the course of the hour, good. Then we've been a success. So here's the key question that we always talk about, and it's, as a business owner, are you satisfied with the growth trend of your business? So in other words, over the last couple of years, if you've been incremental growth, 3%, 5% over the last couple of years, and that's not good enough for you anymore. If you want different results, you got to do different activities. You got to take a different approach to thinking about how do you expand your business, because if you keep doing the same thing, you're going to get the same results. So we're going to talk a little bit, I call it a sales machine. You'll kind of see why. This thing at the bottom there with Billy Bean, Moneyball, one of my favorite movies. It's a process. It's a process. One of the things Brad Pitt said over the course of that movie is it's a process. Well, so is this. These are some of the things we're going to talk about over the next 45 minutes or so. There's three main parts of it. One is the concept. So we are going to spend some time. So we're laying a foundation for the discussion of how does it move forward. But you got to get a sense of, what is this thing all about? So we're going to talk about the concept. We're going to look at the process. So, what are the activities within this process to build this campaign? And then we're going to talk about the implementation. So there's kind of an organized approach to this. One of the basic, you need to start with your business and who's buying from you. Who are you selling to? How do you find them, or how do they find you? And how do you get more of them? So what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about how have you gotten clients or customers or accounts in the past successfully. Okay, then how do you leverage that? Here's the concept part of it. You think about a business, how do you gain new customers? There's typically 2 main different approaches. One is they find you. Typically, they go online and they do a search and they find you. They're looking for, construction engineering, Central Florida, or something like that, and they find you, or they see one of your posts on one of the social medias. They see it a couple times, and then they're attracted to you and they find you. And if you need help with that, that's not what we're talking about here. That's they find you. But the SBDC can help you. We have consultant experts that can help you with that approach. You find them. That's what we're talking about here, where you go out and proactively identify targets, prospective clients, prospective companies. You find them. You do the reach out in an organized fashion, and then you track them down and you make the sale. That's what we're talking about here. And then, or both, typically. A normal business, a typical business, especially B2B, is a little bit of both or some combination of both. Oops. Interesting. Okay, so we're going to start with, I want to keep it kind of simple here. And I want to start with the concept. So think about the single case example. So we're going to use the example, we are Central Florida Paint. So we're commercial painting. We target home builders, commercial general contractors, remodelers. Typically, the decision maker in those businesses is a purchasing manager. It may be a production manager or something like that, or a project manager rather. And we've identified one target. We've identified Green Custom Homes as a potential target of ours, and we're going to focus on Green Custom Homes as a single example. And within Green Custom Homes, they're a Central Florida home builder, so they're in our geographic territory. They're building custom homes. They're using other painters. They never heard of us. Jennifer Perez is the purchasing manager, and we're going to go on and try to attract them. So as we start off with, there's zero brand awareness. The purchasing manager has never heard of us. She's used a couple other painters, but she doesn't know us. She's never heard of us. So our goal is to build brand awareness with her and get her attention, initially get her attention, get her interest, get her response, get a dialogue going, and then we're going to take it from there. We're going to get a proposal and that kind of thing. So there is a process here. That's what I talk about. It's a process. It's the process. We're going from zero brand awareness to potential interest, to a dialogue, to a proposal. And that happens using different types of activities. You know, first of all, we're going to identify the decision maker. We might send an intro email. We might connect on LinkedIn. We might make an intro call. We don't get the decision maker, so we leave a voicemail that we have scripted. We might send a second email. We might make a cold call. So there is a process, and you can kind of determine what that process is for your business. So I'm going to use. I want to add two stories here that are very appropriate. One is Central Florida Lawn Care, and it's just a hypothetical. Think of your decision-making process when it comes to making a purchase. And say you have a property in Central Florida, you have a home, and you're using Central Florida Lawn Care now, and you've used them for a couple of years, and they do a pretty good job for you. But when you started out with them, you said, I want my lawn cut on Friday. Can you commit to cutting my lawn on Friday? Because I want it looking good for the weekend. And they committed to you, yes, we're going to cut it every Friday. You're going to be proud. And they did that for a couple of months, and then now they started bouncing around. And you complain about it. So instead of Friday, sometimes it's Saturday afternoon, and that bugs you. Or sometimes it's Thursday or Wednesday, and you can never predict when they're coming. But you know, you're not pleased. They do a good job, but you know, you wanted them there on Friday, and now they're all over the place. I'm Finnegan Lawn Care. I send you an email. I go, you know, Central Florida Lawn Care. Finnegan Lawn Care. We can do your lawn quality at a reasonable price. And the first time you see it, you go, yeah, whatever, and you delete it. A second time, I send you another email, or I leave you a voicemail or something like that, and I talk about Finnegan Lawn Care. And then the third time, I send you an email, and it says, Central Florida, it's Finnegan Lawn Care. We cut your grass on your schedule, guaranteed. And you go, huh, that's interesting. That's what I want. And that's when, you know, you and your personal decision making about a purchase, that's when I got your attention. And then you go and say, hey, I like that. Why don't we talk? And then we go through the process. So that's kind of, you think about the people you're trying to reach and their thought process. You know, it's not one and done where you call them and they go, oh, you know, great, I've been waiting for you to call. Doesn't happen that way. The second story I want to tell you is very similar, but it's from the other perspective. So KB is the guy. He is one of the top salespeople that I had working for me. I was a regional sales manager. I had 4 states, 11 branches, 55 salespeople. KB was one of the best. And I was in the Orlando branch office with KB, and we got a lead that one of the big resorts in Central Florida had a new general manager. And I said, great, let's put that resort into one of our outbound sales campaigns, and let's start tracking them down, and let's try to get them as a new account. And KB said, no, we're not going to do that. That's way too complicated. Let's go. We're going to go make a cold call. Why don't you come along? I went with KB. We made a cold call. The new general manager wouldn't see us. And And then we went back to the branch, but 3 months later, KB calls me and says, I got him. I got that new account. I told you I could get him. And I said, great, congratulations. I went into our CRM and I looked at what KB did to get that account, and KB did exactly what this is here. So after the cold call where they didn't see it, he sent an introduction for an email. He connected on LinkedIn. He ended up leaving a couple of voicemail messages. He sent another email. He sent a third email over the course of 3 months. Finally, he got a response where the new general manager said, okay, I'm interested. Why don't you come on in? We'll talk. KB went in, had the conversation, did a proposal. They negotiated. We got the business. But instead of him just walking in there and doing the cold call like he thought, he went through this process. Okay, now think of that process where we're trying to track down one. Now think of it times 100. So you're trying to go after 100 or hundreds or even thousands of prospects. You really got to have an organized approach to doing it. You can manage one, or you can manage a handful of prospects that you're trying to get to. And if that's the case, no problem. But if you're trying to expand that approach and you want to go after hundreds of prospects or thousands of prospects, you got to have a plan, and you got to have an organization. And the example we were talking about here, Central Florida Paints, I did a business search, and I did home builders, Orlando plus 50 miles, and there were 1,267 results. Now, a lot of those are duplicates. A lot of those are probably not appropriate, but my suspicion is there's probably about 800 or so appropriate targets for as home builders in Orlando plus 50 miles. So general contractors, I did a business search of these SIC codes, and I got 1,586, Orlando plus 50. And again, the point is, some of those are duplicates, some of them aren't appropriate, but there might be 1,000 of these types of businesses that are appropriate for us to reach out to. Okay, so if that's 800 home builders and another 1,000 general contractors or something like that, it might be 2,000 or something like that. You really got to have an approach. You really got to have a plan. Teresa, any questions that we might have flown through here? Okay.
I don't see any questions just yet, but I think you're just getting started, so.
Yeah, I have a tendency to talk fairly quickly, so sometimes it gets a little quick. Okay, so here, I want to talk a little bit about the sales pipeline. So most of you listening today, if you have an interest in an outbound sales campaign, if you have an interest or a responsibility in attracting new clients, customers, accounts, you probably have heard about the sales pipeline. You probably know about it in the general sense. I'm a big fan of understanding the sales pipeline because I think it guides you in your efforts to grow your business. It gives you valuable feedback in terms of the approach you're taking and the performance you've got. So here is, I always want you to think about starting simple. So this is your sales pipeline: prospects open, prospects active, prospects warm, proposal delivered, closed, and won. It is a process, and here's what these mean. Prospects open means like that list we talked about a couple slides ago, where there might be 800 home builders and 1,000 general contractors, and you haven't touched them yet. You have, they're in your database, but you haven't done anything with them. So those are prospects open. You haven't touched them yet. Then you take, maybe you start with 100 of those or 200, you pull those out, and then you start the reach out campaign, and you move that 100 or 200 to prospects active. Now in your database, if it says prospects open, you haven't touched them. If it says prospects active, they're in the process. They're in, you're moving forward with them. They stay there, and you keep doing the reach out until you get a response, until somebody, takes your call and says, yes, I'm interested, or they respond to an email and they say, yeah, that makes some sense. Give me a call. Let's schedule an appointment. When that happens, that's them responding. They say, we're interested. Let's talk. Now they've moved from prospects active to prospects warm. And again, you think about it, If you're dealing with a handful, no big deal. You can do it on a spreadsheet or something. If you're dealing with thousands of prospects and you want to keep track of them, keeping track of them in this method makes a lot of sense because now you know exactly where they stand. Prospects warm. Now this is the zone. This is the zone where you can secure them. You have a meeting with them, you deliver a proposal, and you either close them and win them, you close them or lose them. Okay. Now, typically there's a conversion rate, and the conversion rate's a little different for each business, for each industry, but I'm just going to go through one example. Say we have 1,000 prospects open. We've moved 200 of them into prospects active. So now we're starting the reach out campaign to those 200. Typically, the conversion rate from that part to prospects warm is very low. So think about it as 5%. Even 5% is probably a little bit high. But so you start off with 200. If your conversion rate is 5%, that means 5% of those 200 are going to reach back to you and say, yes, I'm interested. So it goes from 2,000 to 10. Now you've got 10. Now, typically the conversion rate, once they reach back to you, the conversion rate for the next couple of parts of the process goes way up. So you start the conversation, 70% or 7 out of 10 are going to be interested in a proposal. So that's a pretty good conversion rate. So you've gone from 10 that you're talking to, 7 want a proposal. And then typically the close rate on that is typically, if you get that far in the process, it's pretty good, typically 50%. So you start with 200 that you're reaching out to, you get to 10 that you're having a conversation with, 7 that you get a proposal, and 4 that you win. That's really a pretty strong reality. And then the one thing I'll tell you is this 200 keeps changing. So you go through 200, and then maybe you pull some out. Some, maybe 50 say they're not interested, don't bother me anymore. Now you start bringing in a new, from this prospects open, you start bringing in a new group. It's a continual process. Okay, now this is simply a tool that we've created in the SBDC to help you understand your pipeline and gives you a sense of, how many prospects do you have to have at the front based on your conversion rates. This gives you a tool to understand your own process. And the other thing it does is there's a time element to it as well. So typically, how long between when you start reaching out to prospects and they respond? What's the average? Here I plugged in 30 days, and then once they respond, when you start having meetings after 15 days, and then the proposal 10 more days. So this gives you an ability to understand your own sales pipeline. This is going to be available at the end. I'm going to show some resources. I think Teresa's made them available. So, okay, now we went from the concept to the process. Now we're going to talk just big picture about the process. We have a checklist. This is another resource that we have available for you. It starts with commitment. So at the owner level or the executive team level, if you want to do an outreach campaign, you got to have buy-in. You got to have commitment, and the commitment has to start from the top. You look at the machine. How are you going to manage the data? What is your process going to be? What are those activities? What is the content? So we help you understand that you have to have content. And then typically we recommend that once you're going through this, you evaluate how's it going for you. You might make some adjustments to your process to improve it. So this process checklist is available with our resources as well. Hugely valuable because it helps you picture what has to happen in what order. You can get sign off and that kind of stuff. No questions, Teresa? That's interesting. Okay.
Well, I don't have any questions yet from everybody else, but I do have a question for myself as I'm learning and going along. Do you want to hear it?
Yeah.
Goodness. So that timeline you were discussing, is that typically how long it takes is 30 days, or does it depend on your industry, or is that pretty typical? Like, do I give up on someone if I haven't interacted with them in 30 days, or?
Yeah, no, so it really depends on the industry that you're in. And think about it this way. If you're selling a product, you're selling widgets and you're selling them to home builders or you're selling them to manufacturers or something, typically that process is fairly quick because it's not that complicated. I know engineering groups that I'm working with where sometimes the time frame is a year or more than a year. So sometimes these elapsed times really get kind of extended out. It really depends on your industry and kind of how competitive your business is, that kind of thing. So that's why I'm saying, this has to be customized for you to be able to understand, how this thing is working. Does that kind of make some sense?
That does to me. Thank you. And again, everybody, I'd like to just remind you that John will be taking questions as we go through the presentation. You don't have to wait till the end. So go ahead and ask. Oh, we just did get one more question. What type of CRM do you recommend for a small business?
That's a great question. We'll come to that in just a couple of slides.
All right. Thank you.
CRM. Okay, so now again with the process, every business is a little bit different, but think about it this way. You're trying to get somebody's attention, either a purchasing person or a VP of engineering or a CEO, whoever is going to be the appropriate person in that business, in that prospective target business that's going to make the decision to bring your business on. And here are a couple of the typical. You call them, you call them and say, hey, I'm Finnegan Incorporated. This is what we do. You can use our services. Call them, telephone call, personal emails, email blasts or mass emails or group emails or an email campaign. We'll talk just a little bit about that when we get to the CRM. And that's a very efficient way to get out a message to multiple hundreds or even thousands of prospects. Very efficient way, highly recommend it. Telephone calls. And telephone calls, you want a kind of a script to follow. So if you get somebody on the line, you don't go, hey, how you doing? You have a kind of a very specific script that you're going to follow or strategy that you're going to follow. You're going to ask them questions. It's not going to be hard sell. Voicemail messages. So typically you're going to get voicemail for a couple of times. You want to be able to have a voicemail message that gets their attention. That's dynamic. That's not hard sell. LinkedIn invitation. So you go on LinkedIn, you kind of connect to them, that kind of thing. So these are the, just a couple of the activities that you'll put into your campaign.
All right,
okay.
I do have one more question.
Yeah.
Would all of these stages go into the cost of new customers to the organization?
Into the cost?
Mm-hmm. Of attaining new customers, cost of acquisition of new customers.
Yeah, so typically from a financial perspective, financial management perspective, it's not in cost of goods sold. So you wouldn't put it up there. You'd put it in SG&A, sales and general administrative cost. So you wouldn't track it based on individual clients, or you wouldn't even allocate cost based on individual clients that you secure. You would use that as an SG&A cost. If that doesn't really answer your question to the detail you want, reach out to me and we can have a further conversation. Okay, now we talked about all of these activities. Now you got to put it into a schedule. And here's where we've got one target, one category that we're targeting. We've got 200 in here. Every week we're gonna have a different activity, intro phone call, individual email. Then we're gonna do, this happens to be Valentine's Day week. We're gonna do a email marketing blast out there, group email with, Happy Valentine's Day. Another group email, another phone call. So you have a schedule of the activities that you think are appropriate in the order that you think is appropriate, and you put them in a schedule, and then you start doing it. This is the beginning of, moving forward, of going from plan to implementation. And then you think about, so this is one group. Okay, we've got general contractors, and you've got remodelers who are, maybe in your business you have 3 different categories. And what we did here is we staggered the activities. So like on this first week, we do the intro phone call for prospect 1. We do the intro phone call for prospect 2 in week 2. And we're moving to the email individualized for 1. And then we move this one down in category 3 all the way down to this 4th. So it gives you the ability to stagger your activities based on prospect categories. What it does is, instead of call, day after day throughout the week, you're doing different activities. It kind of mixes your schedule up a little bit.
And we have another question.
Yeah.
Hi, John. So far, the process you're describing is B2B. So will you also be speaking about a B2C process for capturing a sale?
Yeah, so for the most part, this is B2B for the most part. Maybe I should have made that clear on the front side. There are, you can take the same approach with B2C. So in other words, you can get consumer lists, and you see what's happening. Businesses who are selling to consumers, primarily it's they find you, so it's digital marketing. But you can also do some of this we find them with B2C. So, I mean, you get direct mailers in your mail from businesses that are trying to get your attention. You get emails to your personal email account. I'm starting to get more and more texts to my personal phone. So they're using the same approach, maybe some different activities. But in the general sense, this discussion is more about B2B. So here's, for small businesses, this is always a discussion. Who's doing the activity? Is it one person? Is it the owner? Is there a sales professional? Maybe they have one person that does business development sales. Is there a business development team, a sales team? That's pretty rare for smaller businesses. So, at some point, you got to define who's responsible for the activity. If you're serious about doing this campaign moving forward, you got to be serious about who's going to do the activity. You got to realize that. And I would go so far, we don't talk about it later, but I'm going to talk about it now, is you got to commit to X number of hours a week. So if you're the owner and you want to start doing this, you need to do it to get your business going to the next level. You got to commit to 5 hours a week or 10 hours a week or something like that. You got to personally commit to this campaign to do the activities. Or if you don't commit to the time, you're going to get distracted by doing the business, and this thing is never going to move forward. And even beyond that, when I'm dealing with business owners who are telling me, I'll give you 10 hours for the first 3 months, I'll give you 10 hours a week. Perfect. Let's commit to a scheduled time. So Tuesday afternoons, Thursday mornings, Friday mornings. Those are the times I'm going to commit to doing these activities. And here's why. So if you commit to Tuesday afternoons, and it's Tuesday afternoon, you're supposed to be doing the sales outreach, and you're making deliveries, or you're processing orders, or you're trying to collect money, and you're not doing the sales outreach activities, it's very visual to you. You committed to Tuesday afternoon. Well, Tuesday afternoon, you're out making a delivery. In your head, this isn't helping you. Expand your reach. So this is an opportunity to use an outsourced firm to help you with these activities. So there's a cost to that, but at least you're getting activities done on a regular basis. And it starts, and we can give you a list of, I think we have a list of 5 of these inside sales firms. So you work with them, you give them the content, you give them a business list, they make the calls. And what they do is the first part of the process. So you give them a list, you give them some scripts and some ideas of what they want to talk about, and they start calling these prospects. And as soon as they get a hit, it's like fishing. And as soon as you get a bite, and you got one on there, as soon as you get that hit, as soon as there's interest, they turn it over to your team. So as soon as it turns into a prospect warm, then they're essentially handing the fishing rod over to your team. Your team are the professionals. You close it, but they do all the kind of grunt work, the the volume activity on the front side. It gives your firm, your company, the ability to kind of get those activities without you as the owner doing those activities. If any of you are interested as business owners on how does that work, I can get you the list of some people that we vetted that we know have worked pretty well, and then I can talk you through the process. Okay, now you go ahead and you start. This is the implementation. This is the list. So you start with the list. You start to identify the decision makers. So for Adobe Luxury Homes, who's the decision maker? So you go to their website. You look at, typically there's our team, and you'll go, president, vice president, production manager, VP of purchasing or something. And maybe that VP of purchasing is the person you want. Or you go on LinkedIn, you look at their profile on LinkedIn, you look at their people, you identify who's the decision maker. That gives you the ability to target your message. That's the start. Okay, now we're going to talk a little bit about managing the activity. We talked about the activities, we talked about a schedule, we talked about devoting time to it. There was an earlier question about CRM. I'm going to go on my high horse and talk about CRM for just a couple of minutes. If you're trying to do this and you don't have a CRM, you are way behind the times. You are 2 decades behind. You're not 2 or 3 years behind or 5 years behind. If you're in a business of any consequence, of any substance, if you're either if you own a business or are managing a business or are the executive and you don't have a CRM, you're way behind. So you can use, especially when you're starting, you can use a very simple CRM. And I think the question was, which ones do you recommend? We have another list of, and again, I think it's 5, might be 8, CRM companies that are very appropriate for small businesses. In fact, most of them allow for a free, entry-level CRM application, and it's kind of limited. It's limited in terms of how many licenses. So maybe it's 1 license, 2 licenses, not typically more than 3 licenses. That would be free. It's limited in terms of how many prospects you can put in there. So maybe it's no more than 500 or no more than 1,000 or something like that. So it gives you kind of limited, maybe some limited function. But frankly, as a starting point, I've had a number of clients that used free versions of these CRMs, and they were very pleased because it gave them the ability to get moving. And here's what I would tell you, just to make it easier and quicker for you, Google free CRMs, and you'll get hundreds of different CRM, access, and you can start looking through them, and you can kind of look at a couple that kind of are attractive to you, that sound like might be good CRMs for you. We've got all kinds of resources for CRMs. We got an 8-page CRM 101. It's all the basics of CRM. And oh, look at this. The SBDC has another webinar like this on CRM use, Tuesday, August 17th, 10 a.m. I wonder who's giving that presentation. I wonder. So if you're interested, you know it. As a business owner, you should have a CRM, or you have a CRM and you're not using it really well or not using it at all, and you need to take that next, maybe that's not a bad place to go, because we're going to talk a little bit more in detail about the CRM. If there's any other questions, again, I've been using CRMs for 30 years at the highest level, multi-billion-dollar corporations. I was part of, for that multi-billion-dollar national corporation, I was part of their field advisory team on what we're looking for in a CRM. I've used Salesforce. I've used probably 5 or 6 other ones on a regular basis. High value targets, I put this in there to make owners aware and executives aware that high value targets are businesses out there that could change your change your business trajectory. For example, if you're selling to hospitality locations and you get a local Hilton facility, that's good. It's good. It's one more. Or if you get a couple, that's good. But if you get, something good, if you get a local, a regional franchise, and now it's 12 locations. So instead of adding one, you add 12 because it's a regional franchise group. Or you get Disney or you get Universal, and it changes your trajectory. It doubles your business, or, those are high value targets. You should, first of all, identify them and then treat them differently. They typically don't respond to the same approach you take with everybody else. And typically don't overdo it, so identify a handful, 3, 5, 10, something like that, certainly not more than 10. And then, you treat them differently. You take a different approach, you take a different strategy, because that could impact your business substantially.
Okay, we do have one question.
Yes, good.
If a company declines the service, do you continue? All scripts have been used. When do you know to stop pursuing?
Yeah, so that is a good question. Here's what I would tell you is it's instinctive up to you. It depends on what the response is. If the response is, we don't use that service, we don't use that product, that's not the way our business works, take them out. You take them out of the database, or you put them in your database as dysfunctional or something, because no matter how good your message is, if they don't use your service or your product, there's no value there, and you're going to irritate them. If they say, no, I'm using somebody else and I'm happy, I've been in sales a long, long time, that's never the end. If that was the end, I never would have made it in sales. But maybe you put them on instead of reaching out every week to them or every month to them, maybe you put them on in a pause in a group where you're reaching out on a quarterly basis or something, just to keep in front of them. And I can't tell you how many accounts my people have secured where we had, no, we're happy with our current, no, we're happy with our current for a year. And then finally we reach out and go, you know what, I'm sick of our current. Their service has gone down. I've complained, they're not responding. I'm sick of it. We've used them for 5 years. Come on in and talk. So my point is, if they are using your product or are using your service, you put them in a different category. You keep them in your database. You keep reaching out, but kind of on a friendly, never on a hard sell, but more on a friendly, just don't forget about us kind of thing. Hopefully that answered the question. Okay, implementation. So now how to proceed. It's a process. So here's what I would tell you. We covered a lot of ground. There is no one single path forward that's right for every business. Everything's a little different. So what you got to do is you got to start by talking about it. You talk about, how do we want to do this? What do we want this to look like? Who's going to do it? That kind of thing. And I talk about talking with friendlies. And here's what I mean by that. And I think there's huge value in it is if you're a roofer, or no, we talked about painter. So if you're a painter and you're trying to reach out to home builders, and you have a home builder you've been working with for a couple of years, you're very friendly with the owner of the home builder, you sit down with the owner of the home builder and you say, hey, I'm going to do a reach out campaign to other home builders. What about us do you like? What is it that attracted you to us in the beginning? Why did you come? What do you like? And then the friendly is going to tell you, I like the fact that you're on time. I like the fact that when you say it's going to take 3 days, it takes 3 days. That's very important to me. Okay, now you take that. Maybe that's part of your message that when you're reaching out to other home builders, hey, Finnegan Paint, we are always on time, guaranteed, or whatever that is. So you talk to friendlies, you get your own team involved. This doesn't have to be you alone. Get your team involved, talk to friends, talk to business associates, evaluate the ideas, plan it out, figure out what you want to do. And one of the things I'm going to tell you is if you're an owner of a business and you're running the business and you're trying to do this, you got to be realistic with you only have X number of hours in a week. You got to be realistic. So prioritize what you're going to do. And you'd rather do a couple of things very well as opposed to trying to do 5 or 6 things mediocre or not at all, or you get frustrated and everything goes by the wayside. So prioritize your time, start little, grow it, and then move forward. Let's rock and roll. This approach works. We've worked with, yeah.
Sorry, John. We did have one question. Can you go into some more detail about when I follow up with clients? What am I following up with? I don't want to just keep reminding them that they haven't bought from me yet.
Okay, so think about it this way. It's about brand awareness. It's about awareness. So at some point, if you are doing a reach out campaign after 5 or 6 contacts, they start to be aware of you. Well, now it's a matter of, and I've got other clients that are doing this, it's a matter of not selling, but just making something aware. So for Veterans Day, I've got a number of clients who are veteran owned. And when Veterans Day come up, they send out a group email, or they do an email marketing campaign. Hey, our appreciation and respect for veterans. Or, if there's something happens in the business in Central Florida and it's good for the business, like we've secured, Disney's bringing in 2,000 positions from California, where you post that or you send out an email, good for Central Florida. It's not you hard selling, it's you, making a communication out to all of your people, and it's not hard sell, but what it does is it keeps the brand awareness going up, so they can see, the name of your company. Hopefully that was okay.
I liked it.
What was that? Okay. So now what do you do? Seek professional help. So we've had this conversation on a very, very general level. We kind of talked about components of it. We talked about, activities. We talked about how to organize it and using a CRM to kind of manage it, kind of thing. So now if, as a business owner, you're going, yep, time to go, time to rock and roll, time to take it to the next level, reach out, and the people at the SBDC can help. Here are the resources we talked about earlier. This is kind of sales outreach campaign basics. We have sales outreach campaign checklist. We have the pipeline analysis tool. We have other things like one of the questions was, what do you use for subjects and content? I have an email marketing guide that says, subject line is critical. If the subject line is compelling, they're more likely to open it up. If you have a link to your website, you can tell if they click on your link to your website, that indicates interest. So we have all of these materials that are educational, that are structural, that are things like these, the checklists and stuff. These are all available for no charge. So if you're interested, let us know.
We do have another question.
Yeah.
Okay. When do I decide to hire a dedicated salesperson? Do I have to hire a marketing person first?
No, not necessarily. So here's what I would tell you, and it ties into the question before. Here's what I would tell you is, if your business is generally, they find you. So they're going, they see your website, they Google it and find you, or they see your post on Instagram or Facebook and they're finding you. Then I would go to a marketing person first, because that's where the bulk of your new clients are coming from. If you're thinking about, if your business is typically you find them, so if you're in an engineering firm, you got to reach out to them and you got to identify them. Then I would go to hiring a sales professional. And here's what I would tell you is, be prepared. Have a job description for this sales professional. have an understanding of what the program is, of what the activities are, because typically if you're hiring a sales professional, they're going to be good at doing the activities. They may not be good at, putting the plan together. Some of them may, some of them may not. And we can help you put a plan together. So when you're ready to hire somebody to do those kind of activities, we can have the job description for you. We can have, this is, how you manage the process kind of thing, that kind of thing. And, so the answer, my answer is always sooner than later. If you're thinking about hiring somebody to do those activities now, and you don't until the end of the year, you're going to be in the same place at the end of the year that you are now. Or you wait a year and you've been thinking about it for a year, you're going to be at the same place getting the same results. If you think that's going to help get your business to the next level, do it now. Let's do it, but do it right.
The next question is, can you do a recap of how the sales funnel intertwines with the campaign cycle and pipeline tool?
Yeah, that's kind of what we were talking about the whole. So sales funnel and sales pipeline is the process. It's understanding the process from piece to piece to piece to piece, and understanding the conversion rates. That you start off with a big database of prospects. You start reaching out to them. It comes down that eventually, of 200, maybe a 10 start responding to you. Okay, that's coming down the sales pipeline, and it's going through the process as well. So that's kind of what this thing is all about. It's a perspective. It's a vision of how the thing works. So I think we're kind of coming up on an hour. Here's what I'm going to say is the SBDC, we have a number of people like me that can help. If you're a business owner and you're thinking, yeah, I need to get moving because I'm sick of incremental growth. We really need to, ramp this thing up. We really need to be aggressive in terms of how we try to grow our business. Give us a call. And then the SBDC, it's not just about, obviously part of it is business growth, but it's, if you need help with access to capital or financial management or international trade and government contracting, we can help. And, if you've got a couple of things where you're, you could use some help on, we can do that.
We do have 2 more questions.
Okay.
The first one, is the sales funnel pipeline my sales forecast that I often hear about, or is that something different?
Yeah, it's very similar. Yeah, so as soon as you start to understand your sales pipeline, you can project. So, you can project on how many do you have in active, how does that convert to closed and won? So you do the math all the way along the process. So how many, if you've got 200 in the beginning of the pipeline, and you're going to end up with 5 after a course of 2 months, and that average sale, the average closed and won is, $5,000. Okay, that's how you can do your sales projections in terms of dollars, because you're looking at the pipeline, the conversion rates, what is the average sale, and how far out is it? It's all mathematics. It's all based uniquely on your business, and that's what there's huge value to the CRM, because as you go through the process, I dropped my coffee cup. As you go through the process, it starts to give you the conversion rates. It starts to give you the math of your sales pipeline.
Okay, I do have this next question. It's a little bit longer, so I'm going to take my time and make sure I say it all appropriately, okay?
Okay.
Clients can find my services online, but if I want to expand my reach, is it okay in business to sell to other businesses' clients? My service will cater to their clients. Do I try to buy their clients' information or do a deal with the company somehow? Okay,
so if I'm understanding this correctly, you're talking about other businesses' clients. Absolutely, to me, your business is your priority. I don't care where you're getting the clients. More often than not, you are taking them from somebody else. So if they're a competitor, there's no ability to work together. You're essentially stealing, you're taking their clients. But they're trying to do the same thing. They're trying to take yours if they're trying to grow. Here's another way to look at that question is strategic partnerships. So I'm going to go back to the painting example, selling to home builders. If you can team up with somebody who's a plumber and is selling plumbing services to home builders, maybe you have a strategic partnership where you get with them and you say, hey, I've got 12 home builders that I'm currently working with. I'm going to introduce you to those 12 home builders. You're not using, none of them are using you, so maybe you can get a couple of them because I'm going to take you in and give you a warm introduction. The same way you're going to take me into yours, you're going to introduce me and I'm going to try. So that's a strategic partnership. So you talk about taking other people's clients or customers. If it's competitors, you're taking it. It's a zero-sum game. It's you or them, right? But if it's somebody that could be a strategic partner, they're in the same space, but you're not competitors, you can work that strategic partnership. I'm a big fan of strategic partnerships. Okay, we are winding. Yeah.
That does seem to be all of the questions, except somebody did mention that they did lose connection. And I did want to tell everybody that this is being recorded and we will be putting this on our YouTube page within the next 2 weeks after we download it and edit it. So if you want to see this presentation again, it will be on our YouTube page. So I think that's all the questions we have. If you guys are wanting to ask anything else, please continue to send in your questions.
Yeah, and here's my email address. If you're interested in pursuing the conversation, I'm happy to help. And it's ongoing. It's not a one and done kind of a conversation. It goes on. So thank you so much. I appreciate your attention and time and for putting up with me and some of my nonsense. So have a wonderful day. We'll see you.
Thank you so much, John. There is a couple of technical questions I will be finishing up, adding to the chat. I will let you know, I will send you, put in the chat what our YouTube page is as soon as I confirm it. And you guys can see a bunch of the webinars that we've done in the past.
Okay.
And so far, I think that's it. Thank you everybody for coming in.
Very good. We'll see you later.
And we will be sending you all an evaluation. It's been really important for us to get those evaluations back to continue our webinar series. The more you guys send them back, the more we know that this is valuable, this format, and this is valuable to you. So if you can, please make sure to check your inbox sometime today. And I did, again, put the YouTube into the chat box so that you will have a link to our YouTube page, and we have a webinars series on there that you can see all of our webinars. Again, this webinar is recorded and will be put on there in about 2 weeks, okay? If there are no other questions, then we will go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you so much, everybody, for showing up today. We really appreciate you being here. And don't forget to fill out that evaluation. All right? Have a great day, everyone.